Hi, good evening. Happy Thursday.
Hello, our peoples out there in love land. It's good to see y'all out there. I can't see y'all. I'm just playing. Hey, welcome back. Here to talk about uh, talking with conversation with the Coxes. Uh, Man, I tell you what. Listen, last week we had an amazing, an amazing conversation. We kind of talked about love versus lust, and we had so many comments. So many people join us and wanted to talk and kind of weigh in on what they thought about love versus lust. And so we just want to give people an opportunity um, who maybe weren't with us last week, or they were with us last week, but you didn't get a chance to kind of share what you wanted to share. We're going to open it back up because it was such a deep topic, and so we want to just open the floor back up. We're going to talk about love versus lust for a little bit, and then if we get back into it, we'll stay there. If not, then we'll move on to something else. But love versus lust, and it's pretty awesome, man. We got a pretty cool special guest with us uh, tonight. My brother-in-law, my brother in love. Uh,
Wanna bring him on?
yeah, we can bring him on.
Okay. Why you introduce him?
Uh, Doc Reid, my man, all the way from Michigan, out there doing his thing with the big blue shirt on. I see you. I see you. Maybe I need to go put on my long horn. No, I'm not gonna talk about that right now. But anyway, um, so Robert, good to have you here, man, with us. We thank you for taking time out of your
Welcome.
busy schedule, man, to break bread with us. Uh, and so you reached out last week and kind of let us know if there was something that you had found out that you wanted to share with us. Is that accurate or not off the mark or?
Yeah, no, just well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. It's been a couple weeks in the making, and I joined the last broadcast kind of late. Things have been very, very busy. But one of the things, uh, I'm telling you, I'm getting more bugs and more different things stopping me from having this broadcast with you guys. I know the devil's busy, but I'm gonna rebuke him right now. Yeah, I'm just excited to be on and continue the conversation. But I would just ask, since I did miss the so much of it last time, just for a little recap, because I got your message. I heard the comments and things, but I think it would be helpful just setting the tone to hit a little recap, and then I'll kind of share what I had.
Should we bring Sean on?
Miss Shauna. Sean, you want to come on too?
Just because he had input on that as well. He talked. I'm gonna send him the thing. Sorry.
Okay, so while she's doing that, we'll hit the recap real quick. Um, so last week we brought up the topic love versus lust, and we wanted to do that because we felt like sometimes those people kind of treat those terms, those ideas as being the same thing. But we wanted to kind of break it down so that we could definitely uh, uh, try to decipher between what love is and what lust is. And we had a lot of people come on and they tell us what they thought love was, what they thought lust was, and we sort of compared. And so there was a really bright point when we started talking about it, because I learned that there was more than one type of lust, right? And so often, when we talk about love versus lust, or we talk about lust, a lot of people think lust is like purely sexual, right? And so I learned last week that there are multiple facets of the the term, the idea lust, right? And so I was only able to speak from a point of view that I knew of, and so I felt really good about being able to get on here and be taught and learn a different concept. And so I mean, like I said before, when we do this thing, we do not claim to be subject matter experts. We don't claim to be the know all be all. but we claim to know, we want to learn more about different things. And so really appreciate everybody getting on last week to come on and just kind of pour out some of the things that that they did and kind of be a part of the conversation for sure. So
Okay.
so yeah, so that's
And
I'm sorry, go ahead, babe.
and I was going to bring Sean on so he could recap his perspective. I know Andrea's was she quoted the scripture 1 Corinthians 13, I believe. I don't want to say it wrong. Love. And she posed the question. I think where the conversation really went, I think where you came on is when she said, can lust be in a marriage?
Right.
Yeah.
And that was a very deep question.
Right.
Very deep question. But
Okay.
yeah, and so that's what we are. That's what we did. That's what we talked about. Walked away from the table feeling full. Because knowledge is definitely power. Any opportunity we have to learn, man, is something that I feel is an opportunity to take advantage of. So we got popped up. We want to see if you want to recap kind of what we brought to the table last week. What up, Cuzzo? He's muted.
He's frozen.
Uh-oh.
Robert's frozen.
I'm here.
Robert still. Okay, so hey, Sean, can you hear us? Robert joining us. Have y'all met before?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jakeem, okay. A recap on last week's conversation before we go into his, and then if you want to say anything else, and then we're gonna relieve you, Sean. But we wanted you to come on to give a recap, if you would.
You got the Bama? Let the Bama play?
Oh, roll tide, baby. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Hey, serious business. Hey, thanks for having me on again. Appreciate it. Much love. I gotta remember, I'm a little bit more senior to y'all, so I'm trying to remember exactly what I said. Sometimes that stuff not coming from me. I'm just gonna put it like that. Sometimes that stuff it's not coming from me. So it's coming from above, I believe, So I would say last week we talked about I remember part of it we talked about not being introduced to it, not being taught anything. Everything we're doing by fire. We're as far as love goes. So we don't know. I mean, we had no role models or whatever. And I believe Auntie Debbie came on and said the same thing. She said the same thing. There was no conversation about this is what love looks like. It was more of a functional thing at one point in time. I brought that up too. I said, it was more of a functional thing, because we were in an agrarian culture where, you ate what you raised, or you were on a farm or whatever, and it was difficult, with a family. So most fathers, married their daughters off. They wanted sons to help them, tend land or whatever. You want to look at it like that. And then if they had daughters, tried to marry them off kind of early, and they didn't sit down and say, well, this is the birds and the bees. There's kind of, hey, here's Larry down the street. He's older, so he got his own place. So that's it, and that was pretty much the end of it. And it kind of trickled down. It's kind of hard to teach your children and teach their children, and they teach their children something that you have no concept of, or very little concept of. So I think we kind of spoke on that, but I don't want to go too far off subject. But I think that's kind of how we went through it last week.
Okay.
No,
all right. Thank you very much. All right, Robert.
All right. Thank you for that. Yeah. So the thing is, I know I was making a lot of comments, last time when I did jump on. I was like, yo, love ain't nothing but desire. Love is good. It can become something else. But I want to tell you that because of our conversation, it kind of caused me to go into prayer and study. And I had to change my thoughts on lust in and of itself, right? Not necessarily love, but lust, because I was thinking, lust is, if you look, lust is just desire, you know, um, and there's nothing wrong with desire when it's checked, right? So that's why I was thinking just off the top of my head, yeah, of course, there's nothing wrong with lust. I lust my wife, and all these type of things. But I'll have you know that I had some horrible sleep after that conversation. And I kept getting up early in the morning, and I kept thinking about it throughout the day. And then I had to go into the Bible and see what it said, about lust. And what's interesting for me when I looked at it from that perspective, because the Bible is my foundation, and that's my filter for where I view the world and gain my understanding. So when I did that, I wanted to look at lust in context of the Bible everywhere from beginning to end, right? As well as love. I looked at love from the beginning to end in context. And what I found was there really, if I had like a scale, there were no positive attributes or characteristics when the Bible talks about lust. And I was like, whoa, well, wait a minute, because I'm looking for righteous lust. But I didn't find righteous lust at all, right? What I did find was that lust in and of itself is born from the will of man. And I was like, okay. And if we know the condition of the heart, anything that the heart produces naturally without trying is sinful at the root of it. And that kind of shocked me, because I was like, well, here I am saying it's good, for that to be in a marriage. But my whole perspective is no. And I think that when we talk about love versus lust, it's kind of like having to look at, if I could replace the words, love would be replaced with the mind. And what the mind represents is not something that you're naturally born with. Mind is something that is developed and given to you and transformed with discipline, with maturity, and with development, right? Just like a child, their mind does not develop until they get well into their past their mid-20s, right? The mind is fully developed. Before then, we think we're grown, we have some independence, and we're out there learning trial by fire and doing those things, not knowing that our mind really is not fully developed and we're lacking wisdom. And so the heart is likened to lust, right? Because it's just unbridled. It's based on feeling. What does it feel good to you? And that's what, if it feels good, then it must be right. When oftentimes what feels good and what you're perceiving as right is very wrong, and that's why I said when I start looking in the Bible, and I'm not going to give a bunch of verses. I'm trying to really make this as succinct as possible. But I was looking at 1 John 3:18, and it says, my little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. And so when I look at it from that perspective, I've been married 15 years, right? And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I can honestly tell you that I really believe this, that people don't know what love is. They have no concept of what love is, because love is not a feeling. And so if we go through life interpreting things, and society does that for us, where we interpret our love based on our feeling, then that's a faulty premise, right? And if we have a faulty premise that's naturally based, and it's not based on, the Father, it's not based on spiritual things, then we're only gonna to produce the fruit of that natural state, which is lust, which is sin, right? And the wages of sin is death. So when we look at the fact that, there's over, I don't want to give the statistics, but I remember years ago, they're like, oh man, over half of the marriages end in divorce. I'm like, I'm not surprised, right? Because people they want to get the butterflies, and I just don't feel it anymore. And you hit the rough patches where the emotions have you not liking somebody. And if you're basing your love and that definition on a feeling, nothing is going to keep you. And so you're ready to walk away from that, you know? Whereas what love is an action word. You don't have to wonder if somebody loves you, because all their actions and behavior and the fruit that is produced from those actions show you love, right?
Right.
And there's so much more I want to say, with that. But I'll kind of utilize the story. We're familiar with Jacob in the Bible, and we know that Jacob he wanted to marry Rachel, and he's like, look, my feeling and my natural everything, man, I love Rachel, right? And then he was given the older sister, Leah. And when I looked at that story again, thinking about love and lust, just to keep it short, one thing I will say is he loved both Leah and Rachel. But it was an example in this is that his natural lust was for Rachel. And I looked at what that produced. And his love that was not based on feeling, but based on commitment, based on truth, based on action, was for Leah. And then I looked at what that produced. And what I found when I looked at that through that perspective was I was like, wow, he really, really loved Rachel. And I've been in a situation where I thought I loved somebody, like I loved them. Everything about them was everything that felt like what I wanted, right? I'd imagine this in my mind, and this is that relationship. That was what I thought love was. And actually it was just lust. And it led me to some very painful experiences, over my life. And then I have, now a situation where, I have love and marriage, and I'm able to look at those two. But when you look at Rachel and Leah, he committed to Rachel, and he worked 7 years for her hand in marriage. Then he was given Leah, and he didn't neglect his responsibilities to take care of Leah. He didn't neglect his responsibilities to clothe her, protect her, make sure that she had everything she needed, which is actually love. Mm-hmm. So his actions, he loved Leah, even though his emotions and what he felt was towards Rachel. And I looked at, he was blessed to have 4 sons, boom, 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 with Leah, right? And then Rachel was barren, couldn't even have children. Where in context, that was the most important thing, right? Because for even Rachel, she was crying out and praying like, Lord, open my womb. I want to give my husband a son, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, she had all the natural affection. She had all that, but she couldn't produce the good fruit until the father opened up her womb and gave her a son, right? And when that son was born, that son was Joseph. And we all know Joseph and the dreamer, interpreter, and brothers hating on him. And they hated on him because his father still naturally loved Rachel and Joseph more than he did his other son, still operating in that natural environment. And we know that, the father used that to bless them and deliver them. But
you keep hitting your mic, making a noise.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I was wondering what that was coming from, but I think that's what it is. But I want to for that. That's good. I hope I remember what I'm going to say.
Well, you can go ahead and say it.
No, that's real good, because I have never saw it in that perspective. I think listening to sermons about him having to work for 1 and then for 7 years and having to work another 7 years, it was always like, God will give you what you want, but you just have to work for it, and just, a different perspective. But I've never correlated it to the love versus lust in that Bible story. So that was just really profound for me.
Yeah.
And I asked the question the other day, why did he love Joseph so much more? Why did he? So thank you for that.
Yeah. And And when you look at so we know that the Father looks at things differently than we look at things with our eyes. He looks at things completely different than we do, right? Even to the point where when he sees you, he actually is looking through you to all the generations and people that come through you, right? And so with that perspective, Joseph produced Ephraim and Manasseh, right? And his second son with Rachel produced Benjamin, right? And still, he was still dealing with the same thing. He lusted so much for Rachel. He played favorites with Joseph. We saw what happened with him. And he still played favorites with Benjamin, right? To the point where when you go back and read the story, Joseph, when he told him who he was or whatever, he said, go back and get your brother, that one that's at home, Benjamin. Because he's like, well, I got a brother at home, right? Go back and get them. And they were like, no, because my dad has already lost his favorite son, Joseph. And if he loses Benjamin, he'll just die, right? So he was so wrapped up there that it kind of shows you the natural versus, the spiritual is what I saw. But then through Benjamin came King Saul, the first king in Israel. And again, that's another example of you're looking with your feelings and what you think, which is not how the Father operates, right? You're looking at Saul because he looks good, he's strong in stature, and you think that he would make a good king when he wasn't, because his heart wasn't right? And King David, who had a heart after the Father, came from Leah's son, Judah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Again, who was from Leah, who he loved, but he didn't lust after her. You understand what I'm saying? But that's where the blessings came from. That's also where Levi came from. And just so many things. As I was kind of looking through that, I just thought that was amazing. And some of the points, and I'll wrap this up. It's just with love and lust. It says love is gradual. Love is grounded on the principles of the Father's kingdom. It was outlined in the Bible, and they're the same today. Love is produced from a heart when it's focused on the Father, and it's born out of the will of the Father. So I remember when I got married to my wife, Jocelyn, one of the things that I told her was, I said, look, my job is going to be to become the best version of myself for you. And I want you to become the best version of yourself for me. But I don't want to put my focus on you. I'm going to put my focus on the Father. Because I know that if I put my focus on the Father, the closer I get to him, the better I will be towards you. Because the Father is love. And I can't love you if I don't know love. And the Father is love. So you have to have that experience in order to show that thing, right? Whereas lust is produced after the will of man, and I kind of already talked about that, which produces a sinful heart. And there's actually a scripture that talked about that. I don't know where it is right now, but it said that the only thing that is produced from the heart, it said lust, when conceived, produces sin, and sin produces death. So at the end of the day, to answer the question, can lust be operating in a marriage? I would have to say no. If you are disciplined, if you are pulling the weeds out of your garden to make sure that you're producing good fruit and doing those things, you're going to make sure that you identify lust, because lust is wrapped up in your flesh, is wrapped up in your natural feelings, it's wrapped up in selfishness, and that has no place in a marriage. That's what I want to share.
Thank you.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
That was good stuff.
Yeah.
You want me to follow that?
Yeah. You think you're going to respond?
Okay.
Any questions? Or,
Okay,
Do you have any questions? Does anybody out there have any questions?
comments,
Yeah, comments.
disagreements.
I would say this. I was skimming through the Bible as he was talking. Because I often say, like, when things are said on here, we have to remember that that's what we're supposed to go back to. Sometimes we look at the world as if, all right, what's going on right now? To me, it doesn't matter what's going on right now because we have a law, we have a book full of laws, a book with laws that's full of information in it that should be giving us the right direction to go in, no matter what year it is, no matter what time period it is, no matter what has changed in the world or whatever. No matter what changed in the world, we should remain the same according to what the law says, is what I say, the book. And so I was thinking about last week when we was talking, I didn't have the Bible open last week, but it said Matthew 5:28 says, but I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her have committed adultery with her already in his heart. So he's already committed sin. And often, I say that to say this, often in the world, what we'll do is we'll pick the sin that works for us and then preach on the sins that don't work for us. And if you go with the 10 commandments, like, all right, we say thou shalt not kill. Well, I would never kill anyone, so I don't have to worry about that. But also there's other things like thou shalt not covet thou neighbor's wife or ass or whatever the whole statement says. I mean, but we'll be like, oh man, she sure look good or whatever. I wish that was, whatever. So often humans will pick the sins that work for them and then preach on the sins that don't work for them. Mm-hmm. And so we have to, when we said that we agree that lust was one of the 7 deadly sins, correct? And almost all other sins can lead you. You can start with lust and end up somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Lust can have you commit murder. You know what I'm saying? So you have to think about it. That's why last week, I think,
It's the gateway sin.
It's the gateway sin. Exactly. So I think when Doc last week when you said lust can, I think it was you. I'm sorry if it wasn't. You said lust can be good, and I was like, no. The whole time I was like, no. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't to say anything to you. I just wanted to make sure that that we read. But like you said, it did trouble you a little bit, and it took you back to the book, and then it made you reassess, or whatever. And then it wasn't me that said it. It was your heart. It was what you knew already. What you had already. And I was gonna say there was one other I was going.
And I'll just say you're absolutely right. Yes, I did say it. And yes, I was fooling my flesh when I said it. And I recognize that because I was like, no. and that the scripture was James 1:15. Lust conceived brings sin, sin brings death. So spot on. Yep.
So Galatians, my bad. Galatians, I'm all over the place, right? Galatians 5:16, you gotta cut that down. 5:16 says, okay. Galatians 5:16 says, this I say, then walk in the spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. And the reason why I say that is because if we always do what we're supposed to be doing, and it goes back to what I was saying, we always follow the law and we walk in the spirit, and we won't have to worry about the rest of it. I'll be honest with you. I mean, we're human, so things will take you to the left or the right, but we have to always go back to the book. This is our what do we call it?
Guidance, directions.
I was trying to think. It'll come back to me in a minute. Auntie, your auntie in here now. She just couldn't watch it. She couldn't watch it on the phone. She had to come here with she's come here with me. But this is your center mark. I'm just gonna say this is your 0 point on the map or whatever. It brings you back to this center point. And so if you follow it, that's why sometimes we say things to. I don't know if we do it to appease others or to include others that may not be believers or may not be fully into the belief or whatever. Sometimes we say things, because we want everybody to get what we're saying. But I'll be honest with you, the discipline of knowing where you started at and knowing what you've been through, almost all of it is in here. Almost all of it that you have to rake yourself back up to is right in here. So I don't believe in that inclusion. I just be honest with you. I don't. You know, I tell people how it is. Y'all know I say what comes up comes out. You know, that's normally how it works. So my thing is, we have to. I don't believe in the inclusion. I mean, they're gonna either follow or they're gonna be lost. And I know we're supposed to reach out. Your voice is reaching out. I believe you saying it is reaching out. You sharing it is reaching out. But if they refuse to subscribe to what you're saying, then they're on a road that they want to be on until they have in their minds they can turn around or they go to where they need to be, and hopefully they do it before it's too late. That's how I look at it.
Yep. I just want to say with that, I actually have a question to pose everybody too. But yeah, some of those verses, Sean, were the same ones that I put down in there. So I'm glad that you definitely brought those up. And I thought it was interesting where in all of the Bible, as far as what we're commanded to do, it's the husbands that were commanded to love their wives only. Like I didn't see where women were commanded to love their husbands, but I saw where husbands love your wives. So that shows me, again, it's the action thing, right? Mm-hmm. And how many times, even looking through, some of the patriarchs in the Bible and how they had, more than one wife, but they had a responsibility regardless of what they felt. Mm-hmm. They had a lifelong commitment to protect, feed, and clothe their wives, whatever. It doesn't matter. And it's viewed completely different than how we view it, right? There was, okay, I'll just leave it there. Couldn't be no deadbeat. You couldn't walk away from you couldn't be a deadbeat, and you couldn't walk away from your responsibilities, right? And that's why I think that command comes in there.
Just we have a comment here from Margaret Robinson. It's my Aunt Margaret. Thanks for that perspective of lust versus love. I had a conversation yesterday concerning why most marriages end because it was conceived in lust and not love. Lust sees all wrong. Love looks beyond and sees the heart.
Absolutely. I agree.
Lucinda Dawson, another
covers a multitude of sins, right?
Yeah. Our other auntie says older women to teach the younger women and to love their husband.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I saw that one. I agree with that. You had another comment?
No, that was it.
Here's a question for y'all. Do you believe, well, okay, in the Bible, I'm going back to Adam and Eve, okay? And we're talking about the purity of love and lust, right? Spiritual and flesh. In the Bible, what I read, it said that when it said that Adam knew his wife, they weren't in the garden, they were out of the garden. Which made me ask the question, well, did Adam know his wife in the garden? That's my question. And I'm going to tell you why I asked that question. Because when obviously there is a purpose with sex, which is reproduction. That's the purpose. And I looked at how long people lived in the beginning of the Bible. They lived for hundreds of years. Like there was over 100, I think, for like 4 or 5 generations before anybody had a child who wasn't 100. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what were they doing? Right? Like they have feelings just like we have feelings. What was their mindset? Right? And is it possible that in the garden, they were, number one, they were pure. They didn't have any evil thoughts, number one. That's the first thing. So they didn't operate from a fleshly or natural perspective. And it was only after they ate the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil that they said, "Ooh, we naked. I got to go cover myself." We don't know how long they lived in the garden before then, right? So that made me think about that lust thing. What do y'all think? That's just a question. I don't know. I'm just questioning.
He can't send it, says yes.
Okay. Yes, they did.
Something else. She can clarify. Yes to Adam and Eve, or yes to.
That was the only question.
Okay. I mean, that's a good question.
That natural urge. You know what I mean? That married couple. Oh, when you marry, you don't want to burn. It's better to marry, so you don't burn. I'm just curious.
I mean, the kind of way.
Go ahead.
The way you look at it, I mean, the one way to look at it is they didn't have any children until after the garden. You don't know how long they were in the garden, and then maybe it was only going to be those two if they hadn't sinned. It might have only been Adam and Eve. We don't know. We don't know the preference. We don't know what God's preference. We don't know any of that. We just know what has happened since then. What happened after that. So I'm with you though. What a great question, because I was sitting here with Mom as I was like, I don't know. There was no kids in the garden, right? There was no kids.
Adam and Eve. Adam did love and appreciate Eve because Adam was lonesome, and God saw that, so He gave him Eve. He received her, but Eve, like most women, like we women are today, no matter what our husbands, excuse me, or significant others might say to us, we got our own version of it. And Adam, having received Eve as his gift from God, he did not want to lose her. He did not want to be without her. He knew that if he did not eat of the fruit, that he won't be by himself.
Because she was going to get kicked out.
Because she was already, the punishment was already on her head because she had disobeyed.
So let me just be more pointed. The question I really want to know is, did they have sex? Because you can love and appreciate without sex. They act.
And that's exactly my point, Rob. I mean, they didn't have any kids in the garden. It wasn't until after they was expelled to the garden. They had the knowledge and they had clothed themselves until they moved into that kind of stuff. I don't know. Like I said, it's not spoken of, and I'm not a biblical scholar. But I would say this is the first night I've ever thought, and wait a minute, no kids was in the garden. There was nobody. Man, they had it made. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I meant to say, what I meant to say was there were no kids in the garden. So based off of the way that you posted your question, I would say that they probably weren't. That probably wasn't a part of their life yet. I'll say that. That's just my guess. Just an interesting question.
I know she was. So just go back and read, the first of Genesis, and just kind of, because he had a lot to do, right? God, he did command them to be fruitful and multiply in 1:28, right?
Okay, that's what I'm just pulled up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So was that in the garden, or were they out there? Now, he gave the command in the garden, but he also told them to have dominion. He also said that every creature was presented to Adam, and he named it. And whatever Adam named it, that's what his name was. Meaning, this man was busy. This man was walking in his purpose. This man had dominion.
Oh, my bad.
This man, somebody said it to me like this, and I'm sure you can relate, Sean and Marvin. When you're at work, and I mean you are at work and you focused on what you're doing, you deep in it. Are you thinking about sex? You thinking about food? No, I mean when you in it, like you got a task and you got, because I know, say, oh man, I know we don't go a day without thinking of, our fleshly urges, right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying think about the last time you were engrossed in your work. I know for me, sex is the farthest thing from my mind. Even feeding myself is the farthest thing from my mind. I'm not distracted by natural urges.
Right.
I'm not distracted by lusts of the eye, the pride of all those other things. Like I'm focused. I'm just like, and then I look up like, I can't believe I went all day. Like today, I went. Gotta tell myself, stop and eat. I'm just saying. I think it's
Well, I ain't
possible.
gonna lie to you. I don't have to tell myself to stop and eat now. I'm telling you now. The boy fat. I had to eat. The other stuff I might push to the side, but when it comes, I gotta have some cucumbers or something, something gotta be right there.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm just saying it's possible because then you look at, like Moses, and you look at the Messiah, 40 days, 40 nights with no food, no water, but they was on purpose. They was, what is, I'm just saying. So is it possible? He had only one wife. Okay.
But Rob, and let me say this too though. What if we think about when we talk about Jacob and Rachel and Jacob and Leah, right?
Yep.
How God set up the womb. What if it just wasn't time for Eve to conceive?
Oh, I believe that too. Absolutely.
Because they could have been in there doing their thing, right? Mm-hmm. But God didn't. It wasn't time for that to happen.
Absolutely.
Right? Because when they ate of the fruit, all they said were, "We are naked. Let us cover ourselves."
Right.
But we ain't have no clothes on. They didn't say we need to stop having sex, or we need to start having sex, or we don't know what this is used for, that is used for, right? And so I'm thinking that they could have been, right? And it just wasn't time. It wasn't time for that to happen when they were doing it. Mm-hmm. Like full disclosure, I know she's your sister, but Roz and I, for my daughter, we tried, for a little while, and nothing happened, right? But when it was time for her to be conceived, then she was. So I know that's kind of maybe.
No, that's a great point.
Yeah,
good point.
I'm thinking.
That's a great point. Also, I don't know. I just was thinking too, just like the Father's outside of the confounds of time, and I just think it's interesting that when I said, people are like 100 years old before they start having children and all this other stuff, I do believe the time is definitely important. And he said, when you eat of this fruit, you shall surely die. They didn't die immediately, but they didn't live 1 year old. If the Father 1 year is as 1,000 years to us is 1 year to him, they weren't even 1 year old. I'm just saying, it's just, looking at it from different angles. I'm just like, so that whole development piece and when were they ready for it? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm done. Okay. That was all.
No, you're good. So go ahead, Sean.
No. I was just gonna caveat what he said, about age or whatever. In the garden they would have lived forever, right?
Yeah,
that's
they
correct.
had access to the tree of life.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
That's another question. Why did they get put out of the garden? I'm just asking because I know we got some wise folks in here. Why did they get put out of the garden?
We're asking the
anybody.
I don't know if I could tell who's on or not.
We're asking them.
Comment. Why? Okay, go in the comments and put your answer as to why did Adam and Eve get put out of the Garden of Eden.
Yes, go in the comments and put your answer, or we'll have to have you back on, Robert, to talk about other topics that we were gonna.
Go ahead. No, you know what? I can have a tip. So go ahead. I got a tip.
Okay, so tips on
as to why did Adam and Eve get put.
Finances.
Okay.
Go. Let's talk about that one.
Finances.
Yeah, some people believe. I know. Totally, it's ultimately up to the individuals how they want to handle their finances. But what kind of advice would you give couples.
For those wanting to have a successful marriage. So if that's not you, this advice ain't for you. My advice, just from my perspective, if you want to have a successful marriage, and it is based on communication, and you know, from my experience, what I can say is men lie, women lie, but numbers never do. So that's an excellent point to start with finances, because regardless of how you feel about it, you have your perspective. Your spouse is going to have their perspective. If you're married and you've made that commitment, remember, love is an action thing, in my view. You need to have one bank account that is y'all's bank account. Now, I'm not saying you can't have other bank accounts, but the main bank account needs to be together. So it doesn't matter if the man is working and she's not, or if both of them are working, two become one flesh. And it's real easy to look and count and divvy things up and expose and make yourself aware of a lot of things with finances, because it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy conversation to sit down and have to be accountable and have to think. Again, men love your wives to think, man, I'm used to going out and buying this and doing that and having this, but no, you can't do that, because every dollar that comes in is in the house, boom. And guess what you got to do? You got to think about your wife. You got to make sure that everything is paid for and not lacking. And that's not an easy thing to do. It takes discipline and practice and focus. And I can tell you that my wife told me the other day, she's like, it only took 14 years for us to get on the same page financially. 14 years for us to get on the same page. And we've always had one bank account. I was like, that's crazy. So that's my advice. That's my advice. Be committed to that, because it's going to expose a lot.
Good deal. So we have some answers to your question.
All right, let's go.
Adam and Eve got put out the garden.
To be protected from the tree of life, they were corrupt because of the fall. God was protecting them from eternal damnation. Okay. You hit so close in the bullseye.
Okay, we have another one.
The garden was whole, perfect, and complete. Sin had no place in the whole, perfect, and complete land, for the reason Satan was kicked out of heaven. Okay. All right. Got these answers. We got any more?
And Cinder says we prepare for the birth by pinpointing conception.
Prepare. Can you explain that? We prepare for the birth by pinpointing conception. Oh. I think I understand. If you would like to elaborate just a little bit, so.
If you can elaborate a little bit, and then Candace comes back. We're jumping back to the finance topic.
Okay.
Candace says you have to go deeper on the financial piece for married folk.
Oh, okay. You got something to say, Sean? Oh, you was doing it. You got something to say?
Real quick. Let me, before we do so we're going to end on the finance, but let me read Andrea. They needed to die. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, they needed to die in their corruption, and God would bring himself, Jesus, as a sacrifice for that death. Okay. So, Andrea, I agreed with the first part of what you said. They were put out to protect, so they couldn't access the tree of life. And I think that's the answer, period. I don't agree with anything else after that. Because and I'm trying to find it so it's not my words. So what I'll do is I'll find the scripture, and we'll come back to Andrea's question, and I'll answer Candace's.
Okay.
Elaborate on which part, Candace? Elaborate, especially since it's
finances.
Finances. Okay, well, think about finances. I mean, there's no other thing naturally in life that we guard so much other than finances, right? And it says the love of money is the root of all evil. The love of money. Love belongs to the Father, because he said to love me with all your heart, all your mind, everything, all up. So the moment you take something that belongs to him and you apply it somewhere else, you are in idolatry. That's the first thing. And I can honestly say that we have, all of us, nobody is excluded on this line, and I'll just make that bold statement, prove me wrong, that we all have set up idols in our heart, especially when we talk about money. Now, some people can be like, nah, money ain't my thing. Whatever. I don't need no money. When you're married and it's a daily thing that you have to deal with, the money, and you have to be completely selfless and put other people before you and make sure their needs are met and all those type of things. Just like the Father brings temptation to you, not because he's a trickster, but because no matter how well we think we are doing, he gives us an opportunity to see what's in our own heart. And oftentimes we're blind to certain stuff, and finance is just an easy way, because 1 + 1 is 2. Right? It's just an easy way to keep score. Like one of the things that, we did, like me and Jocelyn, as I had to realize earlier on, here's a perfect example. Here's a story. It's a perfect example of illustrating my point. Balancing a checkbook. I had my idea of what it meant to balance a checkbook. She had her idea of what it meant to balance a checkbook. And my idea of balancing a checkbook was, if I had enough money in my account, I just needed to make sure that it was good, right? I didn't need to know it to the penny. She needed to know it to the penny. And I remember one time we were balancing the checkbook, and the balance was off by 7 cents. 7 cents, pennies, 7 copper pieces. And I was like, we're good. I'm going to bed, right? She would not go to sleep until she found out where that money was and why it was off. And that showed me something. I was like, dang. I was like, you know what? You're just better than me. Which is different in that area. You said they need one bank account, but what other actions can they do, especially when they have different personalities? You normally have a spender, and I'll call them a planner. Okay. No, perfect question.
After Robert, Sean.
So I'm trying to be short in this answer. When you set up the account, so the main account is set up to pay things like the rent or mortgage. It's set up to pay things like the food that you've planned, to have, to make sure the utilities are paid, insurances, and all those things that make the house run. That's one account. One thing that I found worked well, so that I don't have to get so much into controlling somebody else's personality with money, is as long as our main account is good, we're going to set up your own. You can have your own. Of course, I will be on your own account and you will be on my account. Right. But you can have your own account, and we're going to set a dollar amount depending on what's going on with our finances. Whereas, if you spend every month, you have an allowance basically. You can spend X amount of dollars, and I'm not going to question you as to why you spent that money that way. That's yours. Do what you got to do. Likewise, I have a dollar amount. Don't ask me why I'm spending it or why I'm spending it. Like if I like Lifesavers candies and Snickers and stuff, and that's where I want to spend my money, that's my business. Leave me alone, right? Like, so same type of thing. That just worked well for us, right? We just set an amount. That's how we did it. We had one main account, and then we had an allowance that I could have at a different bank or different account. You could have one, same thing. I had access to it, and we were both on each other's, but I didn't go in it. I didn't manage it. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, go ahead, Sean. Thank you, Robert.
Man, Robert kind of killed it right there. I'm just be honest with you. I learned a long time ago, if you're married, I know this lesson. But anyway, if you're married,
it's okay, Sean. It's okay.
Right? You have one main account, like Robert said. You have one main account, and that takes care of everything that is your liabilities. It takes care of your liabilities, your house note, insurance, cars, all that stuff. And then you have a 2-party checking account, because I didn't hear Robert say this. You have a two-party checking account, which means no money can be removed from the account without two signatures, without the signatures of the two account holders. And then each person has their own checking account. And if they want a second savings account, that's fine. And they have an allowance for the month, which really should be anything that it takes to get back and forth to work, blah, 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 because your groceries and stuff are taken care of out of the main account. So then another thing I heard Steve Harvey elaborate on this one time, he says, him and Marjorie both have their own savings. They don't have their own checking accounts. And she has her allowance, he has his allowance or whatever. And her allowance was higher than his. That's what he said. But he said that whoever wanted to go out, let's say somebody wanted to go to the movies or something out. They wanted to go on a date. Whoever's idea it was to do that, that's who financed that activity from their account. That's how they did that. And it worked well for them. So I would tell you, I mean, I don't know how that works. Everybody's house is different. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm telling you is that main account and taking care of bills alleviates a lot of the pain because you don't have somebody, what you usually will eliminate is somebody having some things going on that can tear the house of cards down, because finances are all, I look at finances like a house of cards. If you're not well versed in finances. So your finances are your most critical thing. Anything can happen. You know, somebody can get sick and have to go in the hospital. A car can get destroyed or something like that. You know, you need money because a tree fell on the house. You know, so your finances are critical. So if you have that one main account where all the income goes in there, and the only thing drawn from that account that's not bills or liabilities is those allowances, then it alleviates all the stuff for the person who is the spender or not. Even the spender might not be a problem. The person who is less disciplined financially, it alleviates that person, because I was in a situation. Okay, I said my first marriage, we had quite a few bills. Okay, she had quite a few bills. And what happened was, what I used to do, we used to sit at the table with the checkbook. Man, Robert, you brought back some memories. The checkbook, because who uses those? Barely, right? No, barely use that anymore. Well, we sit there at the checkbook, and we had these bills, and we was paying like $50 here, $40 here, $30 here, $25 here. You know, and I was like, oh my God, I'm getting nickel and dime to death. You know, so, and then the bill would only be like, the balance would be like 150, maybe 250. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, look, we gotta fix this. Getting killed here. So I would just I remember one time I was praying about it, and God just said, close your eyes and write the check. And that's what happened. I told her, hey, close your eyes. And she said, what? And I wrote a check for like $250, and I paid off like an account. Now, of course, it only brought back like $50 in the house. But after you do that a few times, you can see the light. You understand what I'm saying? So clear up your financial. I will say this again. Let me say this to the people who want a happy marriage, or you want to go into a marriage. You want to not let your finances be a problem. Do not go into a marriage in debt. That's all I'm going to say that. So if you can clear up your debt before you get married, do that. Because if you don't, setting yourself up for failure. I mean, setting yourself up for an issue. It might not be failure. It could be an issue later on down the road, because somebody could look at that like, oh, that was your debt. You brought that in here when you came, and it could be a problem. Because everybody doesn't accept everything that comes. They say they do, but they don't always accept everything that comes along with you. So don't make that one more issue that could be a problem later down the road. That's all what I ask.
Right.
So let me ask you guys to weigh in on this real quick. What advice would you give to those individuals who are in a relationship, in a marriage, long-term relationship, thinking about making a permanent move, right, to be together, but the one thing that's holding them back is they both have the attitude, this is mine. I guess the question I'm asking is, what are advantages towards combining the finances? Like, what are the high points? What are the good points of being able to combine the finances for the household?
Just
The advantage.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the advantage. So, are we talking about when you say finances? You mean income, or you're not talking about that, right? You're talking about income, right?
Income.
Okay. So the advantage, well, it's an obvious advantage right away because you're not doing something by yourself. All right. So if it's an automatic. There's an upgrade there. As long as your liabilities don't outpace your income, it's an advantage. It's going to be it's always going to be an advantage. So if I'm making 3,000 and the person I'm going into a relationship is making 3,000, that's an automatic advantage. You know what I'm saying? Buying power double into another bracket that you never even heard of. Really, I mean, it's an astronomical difference in life. If you making 400 and she making 400, and now your buying power is 800. You know what I'm saying? It's an automatic, it's a double, you know what I'm saying? Or even if it's just a few dollars here, a few dollars difference, whatever. The buying, it's not necessarily buying power, but even in credit, even in credit, it changes your status. Because the income is, correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, because I haven't done it in a long time for obvious reasons. I keep my finances separate. Because I'm always divorced. But I mean, I was gonna say the thing is that when you have credit, if I'm filling out a credit application and I'm married, I can use my spouse is on the credit application. That means we use both incomes on the credit application, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't do that anymore. So I mean, I refuse to put myself in a situation. I mean,
Here, let me jump in. This is how I view it, and I'm put it in a way that you can use it. I, me, my, mine. These are the words that do not rhyme. Us, we, are together. These are the words that last forever. So to go back to Steve Harvey, or the point I want to make is there's an obvious advantage when you are focused on the right things. If you are thinking I, me, my, and mine, to me, it spells that at the foundation or at the root, there are some things that need to be handled because that is not a good foundation to build anything on. You're building on sand. And eventually, when the weight of the world comes, those cracks and everything will be exposed. I don't care if one person is making $3,000 a month, the other person is making $500 a month. It is our money. That is in my perspective, a truthful and honest way to look at it, because it is a selfless way to look at it. And make no mistake about it. People tell you, hey man, marriage ain't no punk. It ain't for everybody. It's because marriage ain't no punk. It ain't for everybody. If you love yourself and you're selfish to the point where you think that you are going to join with somebody else and still be thinking about yourself, that is faulty foundation. And when the weight of the world comes, those cracks will be exposed. That's why the divorce rate is what it is, because that is the absolute wrong way to approach marriage. Oh, this is my money. Hey, look, I'm the one with the career. I made this $7,000 and it's my bonus. I'm gonna spend it the way what? See, it sounds good, but that's why I go back to the Bible said, husbands, love your wives. Because with the traditional family, with the man being the man being the breadwinner and the wife staying at home, it's easy to control that environment. You can't do nothing without me. my money. I do. I'll have a family across town. I do what I have an apartment, and I take my trips, and I do what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
My money, I made it. I spend it. Yeah,
Good.
that's just not. That's not loving. That's not the action of love.
That's right.
We're gonna end on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
That was good. But we're gonna read the comment. Two incomes is great, and both parties have gifts and insights that help grow their financial goals and lifestyle. Thank you, Candace Johnson, all the way from Hawaii.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree with that.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for having me on, guys. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
Hopefully this won't be the last time.
Right?
And before you go, Andrea and everybody who asked that question, the answer comes specifically from Genesis 3:24 about why Adam and Eve get out of the garden. It said in verse 24, and he drove the man out, and he placed cherubim at the east of the Garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life. Now, that's what it say. We can talk about why he did that. Well, when I read that, I said, oh, he got them out that garden and guarded it because he didn't want them to have access to the tree of life. That's why they were kicked out.
Yeah.
And as far as being atoned for in that whole situation, he made clothes, skins for them from an animal. That was the blood atonement. It wasn't an ultimate atonement, but that was the first death of an innocent life because of the action of selfish man. That's my answer on that. All right, y'all. Love y'all.
Good deal. Hey, we want to thank y'all for coming through.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
that's
Making this
good.
a real good discussion. I mean, I can back away from the table again and feel full because I've learned, so much more. Of course, I've had Robert in my life and Sean in my life for my whole life. Sean and Robert for about almost 20 years now, actually.
20 years.
Almost 20 years. Yeah.
Remember when we first met? We'll tell that story another time.
But before we get out, I just want to say a word of prayer, man. We're going to dismiss and just want to thank you guys again for coming on, sacrificing your time and just being a help to somebody, right? I mean, we got a column over here full of comments, some questions, some comments, and we just thank y'all for
piggyback what Robert said. Agreed, Drew.
So I want to thank y'all for doing that, man. Won't be the last time.
I agree, Andrea.
Next time we come on, we'll throw some more topics out there so we can get ready. Come on, have a good conversation. We can feed other people. So I love it. I love it. It's just great. It's great, right? So just want to go to God in prayer, Lord. We just thank you for who you are. We thank you for your goodness and thank you for your mercy. We thank you for this time to be able to come together to have conversation, Lord, that would help people, that would give us a different perspective, not only on life, but in your word, which we know that your word is life. We just thank you for all that you've done. We thank you for all that you're doing. We thank you for all that you're about to do. We give you praise in advance for it. We thank you that you just continue to keep us, guide us, and protect us as we go about our days, that you would be the one to receive all of our glory and all of our praise for who you are. We love you. We thank you. We give you all the honor and glory. Because in the mighty name of Jesus Christ that we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Love y'all.
Love y'all back. Y'all stay blessed.
Be blessed.
Yes.